I made a video criticizing your guys' favorite fighters. Now it's time to make a fight complimenting them. I'm going to spread some positivity here, starting with Paddy Pimblett. The first thing I have to say about him is he really proved himself against Bobby Green, okay? Before this streak of fights against like Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green, after the Paddy Pimblett fight with Jared Gordon where he kind of lost that fight, he had an injury during the fight. People were saying overrated. I was kind of buying into it. He seemed pretty overrated. I didn't think he would be able to like reach high contender status. But after that Bobby Green fight, he actually looks pretty dangerous off the ground. I think that's the thing that Paddy Pimblett thrives in. You know, he's got the big name, he's got the grappling. I think he's going to be able to actually possibly get a title shot. I know that sounds crazy for Paddy Pimblett to do, but like this dude is improving. He's looking better. He's getting good finishes against good opponents like Bobby Green. Bobby Green's a solid opponent. I get it. Like, it's Bobby Green, but it's better than just like some random trash can. Okay, Bobby Green's actually fought some high talent. I mean, he's fought Islam Makhachev. Yeah, he lost, I get it. But, you know, Paddy Pimblett has potential. That's what I will say about him. And he's keeping the lightweight division entertaining. Like, we're kind of like running out of guys that are new, that are entertaining in the lightweight division. We have Justin Gaethje, who's getting old. Dustin Poirier is going to retire soon. Paddy Pimblett's a big name. He's controversial. He gets into fights with people. We have the Ilia Topuria versus Paddy Pimblett beef. He's honestly not really that good on the mic. He kind of just like doesn't say anything at press conferences, but people like him. He has a lot of fans. He makes big fights. I think this dude has a lot of good stuff to come. I don't know if his next fight's going to be a win. I don't even know who's going to fight, but that's what I got to say about Paddy Pimblett. On to Michael Chandler. You know, Michael Chandler, he picks himself up by his bootstraps. That's the first thing I'm going to say about Michael Chandler. You know, he might fail, but he will give it his all. You know, he'll fall 3 times, he'll get back up 4. All right, this dude has the dog in him. He never gives up. You know, and he goes by the motto, man, see you at the top. I'm going to see you at the top. He pulls himself up by his bootstraps. He gets back in the cage. This guy's patient, man. He waits. He's waited years for Conor McGregor. You know, he's very entertaining. That's what I'll say. He's very entertaining. You know, him versus Justin Gaethje. Every fight that he's in is entertaining. That's a big thing I'll say about Michael Chandler. Is like, you know, you can always appreciate a fighter who maybe he's not the best, but he will always put on a good fight. That's Michael Chandler for you. On to Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley's a great striker. I don't think he's an overrated striker. I think he has really good striking. It's very effective. And he's lived up to the hype as a contender. He had all this hype as a contender, and you know, it's easy to think that a hyped up contender that's flashy like Sean O'Malley is overrated, but he was not overrated. He won the title. He controversially beat Petr Yan. I think Petr Yan still won that fight, but he knocked out Aljamain Sterling. He became champion. He lived up to the hype. He's not like fucking Darren Till, who got his ass beat by Tyron Woodley in a title fight and just spiraled from there. Even though Darren Till did win that fight in the Misfits boxing. Thank God, finally a UFC fighter actually won a fucking boxing match. But yeah, O'Malley's living up to the hype. You know, he lost against Merab, but the hype that he had as a contender, he lived up to. He wasn't one of these contenders that just like, you know, make their way up to like ranked and then get fucked up. You know, he actually delivered. On to Adesanya. I have one thing to say about Adesanya that's a compliment, and he's had the best rivalry ever. Adesanya versus Pereira is the best rivalry of all time in MMA. Okay, I know Jones versus DC is cool. No. Pereira versus Adesanya is way better, dude. Because their beef has gone since kickboxing. Right? They fought each other in kickboxing twice. Pereira comes in, he wins every fight, gets a title shot after 3 fights against Adesanya. He's losing the fight. The 5th round, he comes back and knocks out Adesanya. And then the second fight, Adesanya finally gets his revenge. It's like a fairy tale, bro. Like, it's genuinely like a fairy tale the way this rivalry ended up. Adesanya gets his revenge. Pereira beats him 3 times. It's like David and Goliath, basically. I mean, Adesanya, you know, being the smaller guy. Pereira being just like some Terminator who's huge and unstoppable. Their rivalry is honestly the best rivalry. This will go down as one of the best rivalries of all time in MMA. I think it beats Jones versus DC because Jones versus DC wasn't really as much of a rivalry. Like, Jones beat him twice. At least this fight was back and forth. You know, these guys have more history even outside of the UFC. And he does put on banger fights sometimes. Like, I get he has the Yoel Romero fight that was stinky. He has some other ones that kind of like the Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vettori phase, that stuff. But Costa, Whitaker, he's had some good wins. Let's not forget his interim title fight against Kelvin Gastelum was sick. On to Petr Yan. Petr Yan is the most technical fighter almost of all time. I think he's up there with Volk. I think he's up there with some of these new guys like Islam and Topuria. He's insanely technical, dude. He's a robot out there. And all of his fights are just a display of his technicality. You know, he's also got a funny personality. He has some funny moments, press conference, the Thanos snap when everyone becomes quiet. But yeah, Petr Yan, man, one of the most technical fighters in the UFC. On to Oliveira. This dude is a ray of sunshine, man. Oliveira is so happy. The fans love him. He's nice to everybody. He goes to his opponent's corner and hugs his opponent. He hugs the opponent's coaches. This dude is like the ultimate epitome of respect in martial arts. When you think of like the respect in mixed martial arts, people bowing and shit, that's Oliveira, dude. And he's entertaining, but also technical. He's not like a Michael Chandler entertaining where he's just throwing big looping punches. No, he's technical too. He's got the ground game. He's got the chokes. He's got the knockout power, but he's also technical. He has the best of both worlds. You know, he's not a super technical fighter who doesn't really engage much and just wins by points. No, he goes for the finish. He's technical and he looks for the finish. On to Jon Jones. Jon Jones, he puts on must-see fights. I mean, you might not like Jon Jones, but you'll see every one of his fights, whether it's to see him lose, whether it's to see his display of skill, because he's one of the most skilled fighters of all time. He has one of the biggest arsenals of all time. And that's the next thing. He has a great display of technique. You know, in the striking, it's iffy with the technique. He's still got good kicks and stuff like that. But in the grappling, it's just next level, dude. Like one of the best grapplers we've seen. Just jiu-jitsu, wrestling. And the last thing I'll say is he has a massive fight with Tom Aspinall. That would be one of the best fights of all time if he actually commits to it and signs the dotted lines. We'll see, though. I don't think Jones is signing it. But the fact that that fight's looming over our heads, that fight's honestly a possibility, is something I gotta, respect Jon Jones for, because no one else could make a fight that entertaining at heavyweight other than Jon Jones. On to Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev, the first thing I'll say about him is he's a huge star. And if he keeps fighting, he's going to be the biggest name in the UFC. Mark my words. I think he'll be bigger than Pereira. I think he honestly kind of is bigger than Pereira in terms of like people knowing about him. And also he has the most potential along with Ilia Topuria, I think, in the UFC right now. Because he's young. He has time to, be champion and get a lot of good fights. Maybe even go up and fight Pereira. If he beats DDP, gets a title defense maybe against Adesanya, and goes up and fights Pereira. This dude has a lot of potential for good fights and to cement himself as one of the best. On to Conor McGregor. Okay, I haven't put McGregor in any of my videos because he's kind of not really in the mix right now, but he's entertaining and he's so funny. Like, come on. We can't ignore how hilarious this dude is. And entertaining he is, whether he's in the octagon or whether he's not. If you go on Twitter at, anywhere from 12 to 3 o'clock in the morning, you'll get like some weird ass voice note, the fucking Mickey Mouse voice note. He's one of the funniest UFC fighters of all time. He's one of the most entertaining UFC fighters of all time. And he made the sport big. You got to give him respect where it's due. He made the sport huge. Like, we wouldn't be talking, there would not be nearly as many fans of the UFC if it wasn't for Conor McGregor. This dude really built the sport into something like rivaling big sports leagues out there. Next up is Khabib Nurmagomedov. And he's the most dominant champion in the UFC next to Anderson Silva. I mean, we never seen domination like Khabib versus Justin Gaethje. That was the most dominant fight I've seen probably in my life, like genuinely. Other than like those quick knockouts, he just smothered Justin Gaethje, took him to the ground. Justin Gaethje could barely breathe, gassed him the fuck out, and just dominated him, dude. And honestly, I think he has one of the best fight IQs of all time. Seriously, I think his fight IQ is, I've heard him talk, like not even in fights, but like about other people's fights, like with Islam and Bilal, like the game plan he put for Bilal against Leon Edwards. On to Kamaru Usman. The only thing I'm going to say about him is he had the most legendary run through 2020 through 2021. Like, that's when I was like really starting to pay attention to the sport a lot more. I mean, a lot of people were, because it was COVID. A lot of people were watching the fights. Usman really put on, dude. One of the best title runs ever. Like, the competition was iffy. Colby Covington was decent. Gilbert Burns was decent. But just the way that he was starting to win, he was knocking out Gilbert Burns. He was knocking out George Masvidal. He was basically knocking out Colby Covington. I mean, he dropped him twice in their second fight. Legendary 2020 through 2021 run. Ilia Topuria is next. And what I'm going to say about him is he has GOAT potential. He has potential to be one of the greatest of all time. After those 2 wins, if this dude really just fights active, he's active, he doesn't waste his prime, he stays in the sport for a decent amount of time, he gets title defenses at featherweight, he's pretty damn close already. I mean, he's working with the best back-to-back wins ever in the UFC, best back-to-back wins. Knocking out Volk and then knocking out Max Holloway. No one's ever knocked out Max Holloway. The only person to beat Volk is Islam Makhachev. If Ilia beats Islam Makhachev right now, I'm calling him the GOAT. I don't care what anybody says. That's how close he is. So he just needs some title defenses. He needs to beat like Mavzar, I guess Volk in the rematch, Diego Lopez. Maybe he goes up and fights Islam Makhachev. If he beat Makhachev, he's the GOAT. That's all I got to say about him. On to Islam Makhachev now. Islam Makhachev is one of the most entertaining Dagestanis. He chooses to strike first. He's comfortable with the striking. He's working on his striking. He loves finishes too. He goes for the finish. He doesn't just lay on top of you. He goes for the finish when he sees it. We saw that just now with Moicano. He literally choked him so quickly and so easily. This guy's one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC. He'll get knockouts, he'll get submissions, and he's just super dominant and one of the best showcases of skill. He's kind of like Oliveira in the fact that he's super technical, but he also looks for the finish. He doesn't just point fight. Lastly, we have Alex Pereira. He saved 2024. He saved the middleweight division, and he saved the light heavyweight division. This guy saved 3 things in the span of 2 years, maybe. Adesanya was going on let's remember, Adesanya was going on that streak of kind of boring performances against Jared Cannonier and Marvin Vettori. Alex Pereira comes rushing in, knocks the fuck out of Sean Strickland, gets the title shot, and beats Adesanya. Now that rivalry's back up again. Adesanya gets the revenge. He saved that division. Boom, he leaves. He goes to light heavyweight, knocks out Yuri, gets the title, and then he saves 2024. He's late replacement for like 3 fights, basically. Even the Salt Lake City fight, that was kind of like a, really quick turnaround for an event that didn't really have a main event. I mean, there wasn't really any people who were going to main event that. It was probably going to be the women's fight for the title. So he saved that too. Like, he didn't have to take that fight so quickly after 2 short notice fights already. And he made 2024 like one of the best years in mixed martial arts. He made evented 3 times on cards that were going to be shit otherwise. Well, except for UFC 300. But yeah, dude, he's my favorite fighter. He's one of the most entertaining fighters. Knockout after knockout. Let me know what you guys think about this video. If you guys liked the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.